Hey everyone, we're going to take a quick break and talk about our sponsors for the month, AMP Agency. AMP is a full-service digital marketing agency that specializes in tour, rental, and destination marketing.
We would not have sponsors on the show if we could not vouch for them ourselves. AMP Agency does a bunch of stuff for Destiny Water Adventures personally. I 100% vouch for this guy. I've handed them over to other companies in the past before they officially became a sponsor, and they have had nothing but great things to say. If you guys are doing your own marketing and doing a piss poor job of it, do yourselves a favor. Hand yourselves over to AMP Agency, specifically Steve Edwards, their CEO, will call you personally and have a great conversation with you about what you guys need to do for your marketing.
Listen, guys, they do pretty much everything in digital marketing: website development, maintenance, Google AdWords, PPC, graphic design, social media management, SEO, and a myriad of other things. When you choose a marketing company, it's so important to choose a company that knows your industry. And AMP Agency knows activity marketing, especially water sports and tours. They got a promo going for Awkward Watersport Guy listeners for their managed websites. Use promo code Awkward Podcast when you go to amp.agency. Again, that's amp.agency, promo code Awkward Podcast. You get 3 months free and get started with AMP Agency. All right, guys, let's get back to the show.
Guys, welcome to episode, we have no idea, 110, 115, 130, could be 300. We are on. I'm with my ever favorite person, co-host on the planet, Greg Fisher. And today we're bringing back a familiar face and voice for some of you. And to some of you guys, he might be a brand new guy. We're with Douglas Quinby, co-founder and CEO, right, Doug, of Arival, the destination event.
Sounds good.
Are you co-CEO with Bruce?
No, I'm more like on the content. So, I mean, like we have the commercial stuff and the content side. So I really handle all of the content, both for our events and like all the research and media that we do. And Bruce he's our hard charging sales guy, gets all the deals done, harasses everybody. You know, I'm the nice guy. It's like good cop, bad cop sort of thing.
It's like Dr. Evil and Austin Powers.
Yeah, it's like you guys, you know, Greg is a nice guy and, you know, Kevin's the lovable guy.
Yeah, God.
I'm great. Yeah, so like all transparency, we, you know, sometimes Greg and I, and like, you know, we have real businesses that we're running and we don't really, and I was gone for a couple of weeks, so we didn't really talk about this, and we brought Bruce and Doug on, and then Douglas was like, man, this isn't what we do, man. We don't sell at Arival. So he's like, we're coming back on, we're redoing the show again, and this time we're just bringing Douglas on to talk about an array of different topics. If you guys are unaware of what Arival is, why don't you give us a little bit of elevator pitch of what Arival is, and maybe like just a quick little a little background on the conference.
Sure. Well, I mean, Arival's a conference for your industry, for tours, activities, attractions. What we say, all of the things that travelers do when they get there, and it's really simple. It's all about helping creators and sellers of experiences grow their business through networking, through content, and through hanging out the hot tub and making deals and, you know, finding friends and partners. But it's about creating community and you know, growing this whole space for everybody.
Awesome, man. Yeah. So if you guys are unfamiliar, if you haven't ever heard us talk about Arival on the show, which would be, if you're a listener of the show or if this is your first time tuning in, we are in concert with Arival putting together a water sport event, and it will be attached there. It's called The Port. And
I love the new name, by the way. That's really great.
That was me. That was my idea. I got to bring something. Greg organizes everything and does everything else.
Do you guys like fight over things like that? I mean, I guess like for what you're doing, I mean, I realize, like, you know, or at least my impression, right? Like you guys have your businesses that you run and that's separate, but this, I mean, I feel like you're treating like the community that you've built, the podcast, and what you're doing with the forum. I mean, yeah, you're trying not to lose money, but I sense for you guys, it's not about a business. It's about building community and just doing something, you know, great. Maybe that helps your businesses secondarily, you know, but it's about something bigger. So do you guys, like, do you have creative differences? Do you fight? Because, like, you know, at Arival, it's our business, it's our livelihood. And Bruce and I are co-founders, and we have other execs that were on the team that, we disagree, like we fight over stuff. I mean, maybe you didn't fight over naming the forum the port, but.
No. I mean, we've been doing this for 3 years now, and there's only been maybe a couple situations where we went back and forth, but we really don't. I mean, no. I might yell at him for some of the things he says, but that's about it.
Well, so like, to wit, and like, there was, and so listeners of the show, and you might not know this, but there's a hidden episode. So we brought somebody on, and Greg didn't know what my intention was. A lot of time in the beginning, Greg used to bring everybody on, and then I get excited about wanting to bring people on. So we're not going to get into it, but I did a little gotcha journalism on a guy. I didn't think he was operating in full transparency, and Greg was, he was good cop, and I was full bad cop. I went into like straight up, like I got angry at the guy on the thing, and then it got so, and then Greg's like, I don't agree with this, and like it was a whole big mess. And it was probably the only episode we ever had between the two of us. But
there's actually another one earlier on. It was more of a political conversation with Steve Edwards.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about because I'll say anything. I know
there's a couple, but for the most part, Douglas, we agree on. I mean, it's kind of interesting because Kevin's a very independent guy. Like he has very strong opinions, but I think that we just mesh really well, and I think we're in it for the community. We're in it for the greater good. So we kind of put any things we have, we just kind of say, okay, like with the conference, he might get his way on something, I might get my way, and we compromise. So, but it's been.
What about you and Bruce? I want like a good anecdotal story about you and Bruce, because Bruce is actually cagey. Bruce is the cagey one, because I'm always like, every time I listen to him talk, I'm like, all right, I'm waiting for it. Like, come on.
Are you tired of spending countless hours managing your water sport and boat rental reservations manually? Is your current system outdated or doesn't provide the necessary features that your business requires? Hi, I'm Greg Fisher, the CEO of WaveRes, an online reservation software built by operators for operators. With our system, you can offer 24/7 online booking to your customers, allowing them to book and pay for their rentals at their convenience. You can also send SMS notifications to your customers, keeping them updated on their reservation status and any changes that may occur. Custom options and dynamic pricing enable you to offer tailored packages to your customers, helping you stand out from your competitor. Plus, our system integrates with companies like Werewolf Digital Waivers and TripShock, streamlining your operations and ensuring a seamless booking experience for your customers. Our software is the best choice for water sport and boat tour operators, as it is designed to cater specifically to your needs. So why waste any more time on manual reservation management? Try WaveRes today and take your business to the next level. For a limited time, mention this ad and receive a $100 credit when you sign up. Check out waveres.com for more info or to schedule a free demo. Now let's get back to the show.
I never really thought of Bruce as cagey. I mean, when we started Arival, so Bruce and I, just for background, like we used to work together at another company, Focusrite, like also travel industry research and events firm, kind of part of my background. But when I left that company to start Arival, because I would see across travel and tourism, there was all of these resources and conferences for like the airline industry or hotels or cruise or whatnot, but there was nothing for this sector. Like, oh, we've got to do something. There's so much need. There's so many amazing businesses out there, and but I also knew, like, I'm kind of a research analyst by trade and like a journalist, but I knew I needed someone who could sell and build out the commercial part of the business, and I definitely, like, at our previous career at Focusrite, like we definitely disagree, right? He'd want to sell something and that wouldn't align with what our content mission was, but I think that's actually, I think it's really good, and it's just a core part of, I think, creating a great business, which is you don't just want to have people who are going to just always agree with you all the time. You want to get people in who are going to bring things that you can't bring to the table and are going to challenge you and create. I mean, there are things that we have done that have been really successful that, I wouldn't have come up with, right? That Bruce has. And likewise, right? There are things that I've come up with on the commercial side that have been successful for us that, as well. So it's that, I think it's more about like getting, having a little bit of that, fighting among your top team. It can be a really positive thing for the business.
Is there anything like how about is there any good one? Is there like a funny one? Like I want to know like some inside shit.
You're just thinking. Let me, a funny one.
You guys ever get like he wanted to have Gary V, but you wanted to have David Goggins, and like you guys.
Or Douglas wanted a conga line at the indoor game, and Bruce said no. It's a true story, by the way.
Yeah, it is a true story. So I didn't. Yeah, like typical conferences, right? You just have these boring coffee breaks. They put out coffee and cookies, but like some of my favorite experiences, like when I've done tours, is like you go out, you do the scuba or the snorkeling thing, and then everyone gets back on the boat and they pull out the beer and the cheap champagne and you start doing the conga line around the catamaran. I just thought
it's never happened. I don't think ever happened. I think you've seen that on TV when you were a kid, and it's never happened.
Kevin, I have not only have I seen it, I am partially embarrassed to say when the conga line started, I was like, no effing way. And then after my wife, and 2 glasses of champagne, my wife makes me do it. We're all having a great time. So,
all right. Okay.
No, but that's but it was a thing where, and we still look at doing things like that. Maybe it's not the conga line, but we're always trying to create more than just like the typical, boring conference thing. We want to create experiences throughout the event. So the lunch is a bit more interesting, or the breaks are a bit more interesting. So yeah, we fight over stuff like that, but that's all like inside baseball, boring stuff, right?
Well, okay. So, and that's fine. But I'm really into the inside baseball, boring stuff. So I want to follow up with not that question, but so if you guys have never been to Arival, I always feel like, and those of you guys who are listening, all whatever 300, 400, 500 of you guys that listen to this show are going to buy tickets after. But if you haven't been to Arival, you always have very interesting questions. As far as because I'm interested in how you guys put together a conference, and believe it or not, there's probably people listening out here right now that have either attended a conference or I'm sure other people's mind twists about this stuff. Not that I'm interested in joining the conference game other than what we do, but how long does it take you and what goes into that line of question? Because you always have very well thought out, very interesting questions that if the Q&A section, I feel like if it doesn't pop, you jump in there and you're you either want to know for yourself or it's something you thought about. Can you walk us through what that process looks like, that creative process?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. So, I guess there's always, so I think of it in a couple of ways. I guess one would be the simple, there's the kind of perfunctory, okay, I'm just getting ready for a session. So we'll decide, okay, there's an important topic that we want to talk about. Let's say, okay, for upcoming, at this event, we're going to be talking about AI, right? In different ways and applications for AI across, say, a tour activity operation and some of the implications. So we'll have speakers that are doing some interesting things. We'll organize a session around it. I'll do some research, or we'll identify a speaker or moderator who will then do some research and have some things planned. So those are the steps you take to prepare. But then once you're in there, it's not just a conference. It's live. It's theater. As you experience it at your event, right? And so it's in the moment. It's also about being present to the experience and the energy in the room. Is this conversation interesting? Is it really getting at what I think our audience wants? Is it getting at what I want? And if I feel like I'm a little bored or losing interest, then I'm the organizer, then I know that everybody else is probably bored to tears, right? So that's the impetus to to jump in. But I'm sure that's like with anyone, if you're running a tour, right? You're out on the boat or you're walking people through a city, and you're always attuned to the energy of the people who you're responsible for, right? Because you're responsible for the experience. So, and that's just something that you develop over time, right? And we do 3 to 4 conferences a year, and it's like we're constantly thinking about, what are and writing about them too in our newsletter and in our research, like what's hot in the industry, what's important, what should the industry be thinking about, what's coming next. So there's always a kind of a continual creative process that's underway.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of what's coming next, and like in our fall start, we jumped into this a little bit because I know what I'm most excited about what's coming next, but what do you think? It's 2 parts. So my question is, what do you think myself and everybody else is going to be excited about, our big hot topic of conversation? And then what are you most excited about? And how do you sort of
bridge?
What's the word I'm looking for? Yeah. How do you bridge that in your programming style? I know.
So let me ask you, what do you think? What are you most excited about, Kevin? Like what's most you thinking about your business, but not just like the day to day, but over the next 6 to 9 months, like what's top of mind for you right now?
AI. I think that it's not even just for my business, but I feel as it's going to be the biggest platform shift since the introduction of the internet. I think it's going to be bigger than social media, and I think it's going to change the landscape of our democracy, and I think it's going to change the creative process. It's going to change the labor market. It's going to change everything in the next 5 years.
What are some ways in which it's going to affect our industry? Like, are there things are there some things that you're doing in your business we're already seeing a return or?
Yeah. So obviously content creation. I think when the what are they called? The agents. When the agents get more savvy to what it is how a dumb guy like me tries to work around coding and stuff like that, or building websites. I think at the very surface level, that's what's happening. To wit, we've been in the process of building a boater safety test for the country, actually, and the state of Florida. And this is just one piece of it, but rather than hiring a technical writer, which would have cost us $20,000 or $30,000 to put pieces of this course together, we were able to put in the standards that they wanted to use and the information and literature that they gave us, and we were able to start bridging that together with the stuff that we were missing.
Hey, Kevin, can I jump in here and just tell you an experience?
You're the big one.
I use AI every day, multiple times a day, and a situation just happened that probably saved me $10,000 minimum. Oh. So a customer decided to create a TripAdvisor listing for TripShock so they can leave a bad review about TripShock. So they created the listing, they wrote the review. Obviously, other customers that were displeased with our service found that TripAdvisor listing, wrote their so before you know it, I have 3 bad reviews on this listing that was made by a customer. So I went to ChatGPT and I wrote the problem that I'm facing. ChatGPT read TripAdvisor terms and conditions. It pointed out that online-only businesses are against their terms of service, and it said to create a DMCA takedown notice that violates your trademark. It wrote up the letter. It found the email to send it to. It also got the address. It did everything. It wrote the letter. I had it overnighted. In 48 hours, TripAdvisor took the listing down. And that's after my brother, who does our SEO, my brother tried for a week. And every time he went to TripAdvisor support, they said that they're not going to take it down. So ChatGPT just saved me a lot of money and a lot of future money because now customers, when they Google TripShock reviews, they're not seeing this bogus listing. So, I mean, this is just one example of hundreds of how it has just basically given me superpowers in some sense.
What did you think of that period? I felt like it was in a news cycle for maybe 2 or 3 weeks when there were a bunch of industry titans from the technology world that were coming out and saying that there needs to be regulation. AI could really, destroy society or really have some negative lasting, impacts. What do you think about that?
It's going to destroy jobs and see a lot of content and journalism jobs being eliminated.
Have you talked to a lot of people in the community, like the extent to which operators are using it? Do you feel like it's really top of mind, or is it still...
They're just discovering it. Yeah. I had one operator that just discovered it 3 weeks ago and is obsessed with it. It's still being implemented.
Yeah.
Hey guys, we're going to take a quick break to talk about the Watersports Forum, which is now being rebranded as the Port at Arival.
That's right, Kevin. We're going to be doing our third annual water sport and boat tour operator forum, now called the Port, from October 9th to the 12th. So let's break it down real fast. The first day, October 9th, is the full day event where we'll bring in speakers, host panels, do roundtable sessions. If you went to the year previous, you kind of understand the format. The rest of the week, we'll be partnering with the Arival Conference to bring you supplemental programming in our special VIP room called Captain's Cove.
Listen, I want you guys to hear me loud and clear. If you guys are listening to this show, if you guys have ever come to one of our conferences before and you thought that was great, this is going to be jam-packed with value. Now, I want to tell you one last thing. Somebody, a very smart investor, once told me that you bet on the jockey, not on the pony. So I'm asking you guys to bet on this conference, on Greg and myself, on Doug and Bruce at Arival, and know that the amount of value that you are going to extract from both of these conferences are going to be an incredible return on that investment.
So let's talk pricing. A one-day ticket for the forum will run $199. This also includes lunch and our after-hours event. If you decide to stay for the Arival conference, you can purchase a combo ticket, which gives you a 15% discount on both events. Because the pricing goes up each month leading up to the event and this commercial doesn't change, please head to the watersportpodcast.com and click on 2023 conference. Again, watersportpodcast.com, click on the 2023 conference link in the menu, and then you can view the current pricing for the combo package and the Arival ticket. You'll also find info on lodging and programming. This year we're going to be having at the Rosen Shingle Creek, which is an awesome resort.
Special guest speakers. We're going to have a lineup that is going to knock your socks off. We're going to be covering everything from assets, finance, marketing, operations. Like, this is the one and done mastermind. And I don't know when we're going to be able to do something this comprehensive again. And guarantee you, if we do, we'll be bringing the same value in a smaller group for 10 times the amount of money, because it really is that valuable.
Be sure to get your tickets early because we only have 125 seats. Again, watersportpodcast.com, go to 2023 conference, and from there you can purchase your tickets, you can purchase your combo tickets, you can purchase your lodging. Everything you need to know about the conference is on that page. If you have any questions, just reach out to Kevin or myself, go to our Facebook group, hit us up. We'd be happy to answer anything you need, and we'll see you there. Let's get back to the show.
So Sam Altman, the CEO and co-founder of OpenAI, he called for regulation on it, and because obviously there's going to be more companies and more programs like ChatGPT, and it's not as though OpenAI just has they're the topic of conversation because they're the first, but more coming. And I think his big concern was slowing down the takeoff on it. Whether they have what's called a fast takeoff or a slow takeoff, because we're going to have to sort of like slowly integrate this into society. They're building in firewalls. So, dangerous ideas aren't, being used on the platform. The other problem is the truthfulness of ChatGPT, the voice in which it's slanted, because this is sort of like, democratization, so to speak, of technology. And there's just a lot of, I think, there's just a lot of ideas and a lot of, there's a lot of different things that this is going to do and a lot of different sectors that this is going to affect. Mm-hmm. And there's like what you don't know that you don't know. And if it takes off fast and it happens fast, we're going to have to be reactive to something terrible on multiple levels, or proactive to something that could be in my opinion, I think it's going to be amazing. Like, this is usually what we do with human beings with tools. Never before have we dealt with one that's been smarter than us. So I think we're going to work in concert with it, and more than likely, if the worst case scenario happens with the jobs and such forth, you're going to be looking at some type of universal basic income or something like this. If, companies, even tech companies that before that were employing 1,000 people, now are employing 50 people. So I think it's going to wreck certain sectors, and other sectors are going to thrive because of it.
Well, AI can't put boats out and run.
Who
wants
to go on a boat?
Yeah,
if you got like Google Glasses,
but
and
they're
just go to Italy.
I feel like our industry is in a good place because AI can't replace. I mean, maybe AI can replace a captain one day, just like self-driving cars. But we are so far away from that. We'll be dead by the time any of that gets implemented. But the tour industry it's in a good spot.
So how about you? So well, now we can hard pitch a little bit. So can you give us a little sneak peek at some sessions that are going to be around this, some things that you're excited around this topic? Or if you're like, I'm so sick, I'm AI to death, you tell us, man.
So I mean, just to close the loop on that, I just would recommend to you guys and everyone who's listening, there's of everything I've read around the topic and the potential implications, someone I would really recommend you all look at is a guy named Mark Andreessen. So he's one of the co-founders of Andreessen Horowitz, which is one of the most successful venture capital firms. Mark Andreessen actually was one of the co-founders of Netscape and the inventor of the Mosaic, the first browser. But and he's got a fantastic article, and there's a podcast, AZ16, where there's an extended interview with him. But he's on Joe Rogan. He's been on Lex Friedman and others, where he's an extraordinary optimist around the potential applications, but just goes into a lot of detail about what it could look like, and that kind of flip side of that more dystopian view that I think sometimes the media likes to gravitate towards. So I would strongly recommend that. But I'm generally much more in that kind of positive camp, but we'll have we do have several specific sessions devoted to it. And in particular, we have a keynote from a really incredible individual, a guy named Mark Mekki, Mekki. He did a keynote for us at our Berlin event and just basically blew the doors off the wall, so to speak, where he set himself in a kind of a goal that he was going to use 100 euros to build a tour company. And so he used a variety of different AI tools to create a virtual tour experience, a website with the video, music, the audio, and the tour experience. And he did it, I think, for 90 euros and change or something like that. And it really wowed the audience. And we expect him to kick it up a notch or two in Orlando. And so we'll be delving into that. And we have some workshops specifically on it, but on different applications of AI. But I think this is also just one of those topics that's just going to kind of, cascade, throughout the event. It's almost something that's going to come up in conversation in so many different ways because there's so many potential, applications across the business. But, I think it's also important too, Greg, like, and you brought that point up, like on the flip side with this industry, there's still, there's something inherently not scalable about this industry, which is what makes the experiences part of travel so special, which is that, well, I've never been on a boat with you, Kevin. I would imagine it's a one of a kind experience, right? And I with the great tours that I've been on or the experiences that I've done, it's it's that individual, it's that person who's leading it, who creates that. And I have a hard time just as a human being imagining how that component can be replicated. And then the other piece to it too is not just the experience that you have with the guide or the boat captain, but the dynamic that you have with the other people on the experience. Like I remember doing when I was at a conference in Italy a few years ago, and my wife and I did an experience, like a wine tasting and food experience, which it was supposed to be a winery thing, but basically it was just an excuse to get 8 strangers in a room and get them drunk and have a great time. But it was the interaction as much with the other people, the random tourists that we met, and the the experiences we had with them, which were as memorable and special. And I don't see how maybe AI or technology can optimize that experience a bit in the planning or the booking or how people are matched together. But I don't see how it can actually replace the human experience of being with those people in that moment.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, for me, AI has made me more efficient in a lot of ways. I mean, just one example today, I'm starting the process of doing budgeting for 2024. I asked ChatGPT, I said, hey, I'm expecting to make this much in revenue next year. Here's all the markets that I sell tours in. And I asked ChatGPT based on this data to put that money based in like each month silos. And it did it. And it said, based on the tourism data for New Orleans and Northwest Florida. And here's what we think that you would make each month out of, $5 million. Those are the type of things that if I need something quick and rough, boom, like it's there. That would have took me hours to do, just in a simple data set. So
I feel like Greg is already replacing the human experience with ChatGPT. It's like ChatGPT, only you really understand me. Pretty soon, the Awkward Watersports Guys is going to be fucking Greg and just like a mid-journey video of me like saying but I don't think my jokes will be as actually no, they could probably program in everything I've ever said, and then the jokes will be just as good. So Kevin's not actually here, guys. I am ChatGPT.
I don't believe it. Nothing will ever replace you.
I'm like the watersport Fred Flintstone. So besides that, and again, I don't want to get into what do you to do that thing, but I'm like, because you're sort of the content brains, obviously you have a really great team, but you're the architect of sort of the content piece of this. Obviously you've been probably, pretty deep on ChatGPT. What else are you excited that this year do you think that you guys are bringing to the table? So so no big secret. I've put the screws to you guys a couple times on the content side of it and being and it's a difficult thing to try and please everybody because it's retention, acquisition. You got to kind of have similar conversations every year because there's new people coming and they don't necessarily have the PhD or the master's degree in marketing and this stuff. So what are you most excited to maybe bring back, and what are you most excited about that's new?
So, I mean, just honestly, kind of personally for me, the most exciting thing is bringing the industry together and having a lot of those conversations with operators, from across the whole spectrum, and really learning about what are people talking about. And we do this over the course of the year, and I'm speaking to folks every day to build an amazing program. But it's that is also part of this industry, right? You've got, and I see it in your community too. You have people who join, who've just started a business, and they're learning the ABCs of running a tour and what's a booking system and what's an OTA and how do I do this and how to all of these kind of tourism kind of 101. And so that's always a part of our event. And then we also have to think about, what's really the focus of this year and what's really changing, the industry. So we try to have, say, more advanced level sessions as well as intro sessions. So as an example, right, I think we always have a big focus on distribution and OTAs. I know that's your favorite topic, Kevin. You love to talk about it. So, and we can delve into that, right, for a bit. But
oh my God, please let's.
Yeah, but okay. All right. Well, here we go.
I was talking about this one small piece of my business.
Yeah, but for some folks, we have a lot of folks who come and it represents 40, 50. 60% plus. I know a lot of operators where it's 80 or 90%. There are some operators where one OTA represents 40+% of their business. And in fact, it's one of our messages to them, guys, that's a really risky strategy. And it's probably not really a strategy. It's just something that kind of defaults, right? Because they're so focused on growing the business and not really thinking about that. So, so we'll have we'll have an OTA kind of 101, session. But then we'll have, a session on specifically a topic around channel management, which is, it's fairly well worn within, say, the hotel industry, but it's fairly new within this sector, which is taking a very strategic approach to all of your distribution partners. And this is really for operators that are a bit larger and that maybe are working with, a dozen or more. There are lots of bigger operators that'll work with, dozens, even hundreds of distributors, large and small. And then you really start to think about, okay, well, if I've got to serve the Brazil market and the European market, and then I got to think about, China as they're reopening, and then I've got U.S. travelers, and then I'm working with, tour operators bringing in plane loads from Europe, and then I've got folks on the OTAs. I've got my own website. Those are all different customers. They might be booking at different times. They might have different things that they're looking for, and the amount of money that they're willing to spend is also different. And so there's a discipline of channel management and how you optimize your product and your revenue across each of those channels. And so, we try to have sessions for like the kind of 101 and sessions for small operators that may not be relevant channel management, but then we want to have content too for a lot of the larger folks who have been doing this for a while and want to look at what's next.
Yeah, and just a note for at the Watersport Forum, we do have a roundtable session that is hosted by Rachel Dickey, our Chief Strategy Officer, about reselling in the boating and watersport industry, because there are some resellers that are not commonplace, like your, peer-to-peer, get my boat setters, those type of OTAs that are not, commonly talked about at Arival, because they're very niche specific. So that will be a good roundtable.
Yeah. They're kind of controversial within water sports, right? I mean, I've seen some complaints about some of those new platforms that are encouraging like private owners of boats to, rent their boats. Is that kind of an Airbnb?
Kevin will tell you about that.
It's funny. It's like the guy that I brought in to cut his head off. Like I smelled that he had, like, it was either cooked up by him, because it was just like him and Boat Setter, and he'd done this Haro piece. And it was just like, oh man, it's like I work on my business 8 minutes a month, and I make like $1 million or whatever it is, and I could just smell that, that publicity piece all over it, and maybe that wasn't the case. And the guy ended up being nice, and it was his birthday, and it was terrible. But I got all work. Man.
Say who this guy is or not, or is this that secret, deep like?
Well, I mean, like it was just bad. The whole thing was bad, and I felt bad the way I handled it, and it was just like.
Well, the issue with these some of these OTAs, these peer-to-peer OTAs, is that there's a lot more to just renting your boat on a platform. There's laws, there's things there's insurance, there's orientation. There's a lot of things. And, putting someone in a car that's been driving all their life, that's familiar with the laws. I mean, every waterway has different rules, and like in Destin, I mean, there's thousands of boats on the water. It is congested. It's scary out there. You put someone that's never been on a jet ski or never been on a boat, it doesn't drive like a car.
Yep.
And so these peer-to-peer, it's not like Airbnb. Like people, it's like Airbnb for boats. No, nothing like. You walk into a room, it's nothing like being put on a jet ski or a boat for the first time in a congested waterway. So yeah.
And even us, like, to that point, like I've gone, like I've even hemmed up our own industry, and it's like, it's tough. Because because I've toyed with the idea of putting together like a staffing company where, and I know my guys, like my peers would hate me for that. But I've oftentimes thought about the whole process of boats and jet skis and where we've got to in the state of Florida and how sort of problematic the whole thing truly is. Because anybody can, like, at the end of the day, there's not a true license for jet skis, right? So jet skis is its own thing, and I've been thinking about this a lot. We've had some problems with our business with like people not understanding there being a language barrier and trying to, it's like a kind of a touchy subject. If you don't understand my commands, how I can put you on the jet ski, and so it's a constant battle of like trying to make sure that not just my operation is safe, but my neighbor's operation is safe, because the state and the county and the city, they just see us as all the same.
A lot of these complaints though, or these concerns that you're raising, when Airbnb started, hotels, they all said the same thing. Destinations, regulators all said the same thing. All of these concerns were there. When Turo and some of the car rental platforms emerged, a lot of the same things. Now, I'd grant you, right, like in the case of renting a boat, there is a level of knowledge required that's definitely several steps above like just renting a house or renting a car for sure. And it just so it may not, to me, that's always been a bit of an impediment to thinking about how the Airbnb model could apply to something like this. But still,
they'll solve for it. They'll solve for it still. But it's still like jumping on a boat for the first time is nothing like getting in an apartment or getting in a car with Turo. It's.
Well, my very long-winded point was that like even licensed operators in our own industry struggle with safety and education and sort of that. The years of stuff that I've seen on the water where I'm just kind of like, I see somebody do something, and 9 out of 10 times, like I know what you're going to do before you do it. You know what I mean? Like it's like somebody like weaving in and out of traffic. You know what I mean? Like you've driven on the road enough times where you're like, oh man, this guy's about to cut me off, right? So I can see that on the water. And it's one thing for an operator who's got a couple $100,000 or $100,000 or loans, whatever it is, to stick a fleet on the thing, and he just kind of like jumps, head first in, excuse the pun, but he has a little bit, and then you have somebody that's got a couple jet skis on a trailer that they, don't have the slightest or are not doing this full time, where that sort of, that education comes at a faster clip when you're down there every day rather than like, oh, here's a jet ski for 8 hours, no GPS, no real training. So it's a problem not just with the platforms, but it's a problem for everything and everyone.
I see it in your group where, safety is one of the most, talked about like topics. I see it for sure. So don't worry, I'm only gonna book with a registered licensed captain. Guaranteed.
Well, and that's funny. Even those guys, like it only takes you a weekend to get your captain's license. You're what they call an operator of an uninspected passenger vessel, where you can put 6 people in. So you can have like a John boat or your own jet ski and go like, these guys that get out there and start preaching about getting a captain's license and everything else, they're just as fucking stupid. It's anything, man. It's a long time to take it anyway, and to like full circle back to our own thing. This is like sort of, it's like an impassioned thing for me. Mostly it's all selfish. I just want to stay in business. I don't want any more regulations. So I'm like, you stop crashing people and you stop crashing people, and then I'm not going to get affected by your tomfoolery. That's the whole reason why I'm having this. We're doing this conference, man, so I could just continue to stay in business. I don't know how we got down that road, but anyway.
I think you took us down there, Kevin.
Who knows, man? I don't even listen to my own shows, so I have no idea what I'm saying half the time. Anyway, speaking of my own business and your business and everybody else's, I want to pivot here and ask you guys like what you think about and what you're seeing. I'm gonna take it back to you, what you asked me on stage last year or the year before, whatever it was. Like, so you guys have had this great industry. What have you done with the money, this and this and that? So what are you guys seeing out there for this year and next year? And what do you think like tourism's in for?
You mean in terms of the economy and the outlook?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Man, it's, this has been like the most confusing couple of years. I feel like we're still, we're still, like I would say as an industry globally, like still very much in a kind of post-pandemic kind of convulsion period where, we're still trying to recoup and kind of settle down. So there's been such a real, shift, right? Like, Florida and outdoor experiences in general really did so well during the pandemic. I mean, you guys stayed open and people couldn't travel abroad. They weren't going to cities. They weren't, doing big group experiences in small enclosed places, right? So everyone was going out. Anyone who had a boat or a jet ski on a body of water, right, was doing great. But now, after 2 to 3 years of being cooped up, everyone's going back to Europe. Long haul is coming back, and there was just a big article in the Wall Street Journal about this, I think a week or a week and a half ago, where domestic travel is down. Domestic airfares are actually have been going down because Europe has been so strong. So I think it's like we're still working this stuff out. And then, with all of this too, especially with the US market, they've been saying I feel like for 18 months, there's supposed to be a recession, but, the recession hasn't happened, at least, technically. Employment continues to be strong. But how much money they have is not really clear. There seems to be a lot of that excess cash from the pandemic is just about spent or nearly spent. There's more kind of debt now than there is kind of cash generally for consumers. From what I've been seeing in the Southeast and hearing from you guys, that you guys have felt a bit of a pinch. Mm-hmm. So it's confusing, right? And I think there's still a lot of uncertainty over the next year and a half as to what the outlook is.
When I Arival, I really hope to kind of get some answers on what 2024. Like I just posted a little poll in our community group, just asking what do people think about 2024? Because when I projected 2022 from 2021, I thought it'd be about 10% under 2021. Well, it ended up being around 25% down. And then from 2022 to 2023, we're down 17%. So we're off, 40+% from 2021.
Well, Greg, let me ask you a question though.
Yeah.
So sometimes I feel like our group sometimes lives in a vacuum because there's so many operators here, and what's happening here is very distinct to our very small, distinct market. Or unique to our distinct market, rather. Do you think that some of those questions, sometimes we're not getting like a really good, so for example, last year Douglas came in, and when we were doing Orlando, he brought in like sport fishing, which we don't, even though we have some sport fishing guys and it's a water sport, but oddly enough doesn't get wrapped into our thing. So do we think that some of those answers are kind of maybe skewing,
because
right. We have 900 new operators opening every day.
It's super important. It's why I kind of bring up Europe and other markets. This industry is so hyper local. So Kevin, you guys are in a bubble, and you're always going to be in a bubble. Your bubble is, is Florida, water sports, and in particular, even your destination, right? Mm-hmm. Think about, for example, I think Hawaii overall has been doing pretty well this year, but now look at what's going on in Maui and all of the poor folks who are there, right? So, and similar, European tourism has been very strong this year, but then suddenly, halfway through, July, you had these terrible heat waves across, Italy, Greece, now the fires in Greece, which had a pretty significant impact. And so I think it's super local, to what happens. And even say looking at urban markets and urban tourism in the US, I'm sure you see very different pictures if you looked at, say, New York versus, San Francisco, right? Or, things that are happening where there are cities that are in the news in negative ways versus positive ways. So this is just by nature, it's a hyper local market. And that's actually something that's one of the things that's also really amazing about, I'm always sensitive. I don't mean to pivot to sell the event, right? It's not mine, but it's
sell it.
But it's what I think is so important and valuable. If you as an operator, when we have this expression in Arival, we use internally. I don't know. Should I say it? I don't know. It's internal.
Yeah, say it.
So we have this expression that we use internally, which is we have a goal, which is we want to get your head out of the kayak. In other words, when we did a massive survey of about 7,000 operators in 2019, 2020, and one of the most shocking, not shocking anymore, but a really striking finding, 84% of operator respondents said, I'm not really in this it's a lifestyle business. I don't need to grow 10% a year. I don't have growth targets. I want to maintain. I want to live my life. I want to keep doing what I'm doing. But and as a result, all of these other things like, okay, the marketing, the growth, the understanding trends, seeing what's happening elsewhere in the industry, innovating around product and what customers are expecting, and all of that stuff, all the stuff that you talk about in your podcast week after week, it's like, it's not really that important. I want to be on the mountain. I want to take my guests up the mountain. I want to take them around my city. And it's something that not just like we at Arival face, but like Greg, like you as an OTA, you face it in terms of getting operators onto your platform. Every OTA in this market, every booking system, right, that's trying to get an operator to go from email and spreadsheets to properly getting their business online is facing the same thing, right? Most of the people who get into this industry, they do it out of a passion. They love what they're doing. They want to be on the water. They want to be up a mountain or whatever it is. They don't want to be building websites. They don't want to be managing listings on OTAs. They don't want to be spending hours on ChatGPT, churning out tour descriptions or all of that stuff, right? But I think it's an incredible thing. Like whenever you get an industry together, if you're running a business, whenever you have an opportunity to connect with a similar business, not necessarily the same, but a similar business from a different world, from a different market, or even from a slightly different sector, and you just get to hear, oh, what are they talking about? What are some of the things that they're doing? Like and I've seen this happen like at your forum. I've seen this happen at all the different conferences I've been involved in my life. And it's something that we just like, we're so focused on at Arival is, when that boat operator from Florida can connect with the boat operator from Maine, right? Or the food tour folks in Atlanta connect with the food tour, the pizza tour guy from Chicago, right? Or whatever it is. And they're not competitors because they're in different markets, but then they connect, they share their common horror stories, the mistakes they've made, the things that they didn't think of, and they share best practices and learnings. I mean, that's the, the magic. Mm-hmm. A lot of it it's like unlocking unexpected value or serendipity out of an experience like that you'll never get on a Zoom. You'll never get through ChatGPT. You'll never get, even through listening to a podcast. Not that what you guys don't do is amazing. It's super valuable, but there's something really, and that's why you guys do the forum, right? I mean, and I've seen it when I've been there and you organize, the best thing that you guys do is the roundtables where you get people into small groups, you get them talking on specific topics. And I can just see it, like what happens, people come away and, their eyes are open to like 10 different things they hadn't thought of that they can think about for their business for the next.
I think it's a stream of conscience, curse-laden presentation. That's what you said to me about my sales.
I know that's your dream. That Kevin, that is your wet dream to get on the Arival stage and give a curse-laden sales-driven stream of consciousness.
Just like just looking all around, like pulling things out of the ether, whatever's popping into my head, just like a mushroom trip or something. But so you did it, you said it, but that was like, I was gonna, if you didn't sell or pitch it or whatever, that's where I was gonna go, because to condense that is like, and just reiterate that is like, it's the sort of magic that I alluded to like in earlier conversations that we had, or things that you're just not going to think about. Like how many times, if you are scaling or you are entrepreneurial, or you do have those dreams, and you walk into somewhere and you go something completely aside from your business and you go, huh, that's interesting. You're doing what? And I've seen more of those serendipitous moments happen at Arival, at our thing, where you just see people are like, oh man, they're like minds blown that you're doing this thing this certain way. And then it like clicks in their head how that they can apply it toward their business model. And sometimes that happens in a session. Sometimes that happens in the big room. Sometimes that happens in a round table. Sometimes it happens in a hallway or at lunch, just having a one-on-one with somebody completely outside your industry, maybe tied to your industry, that it may be, and if it's me, it could be your next door neighbor competitor, because I'll give it away, So I think that's the best piece of the whole thing.
Yeah. I had the idea for Arival at a conference. I was at was at a ski tourism conference. I was speaking there. This was years ago, and I had just completed all this research and work in the tours and activity sector. And I was at this conference, and I was meeting with some folks, a team that was building a new company in activities, and they were at this conference. And then we were just talking about the conference for a moment. It's a great conference, great company that runs it. It was a good business. And I saw there were about 1,000 or 1,200 people or something there. But I also knew from my research work, I knew how big Ski Tourism was at the time, which is like this. Mm-hmm. I mean, relative to like tours, activities, and attractions, which is, I guess if you're listening to this, you don't know what I'm doing, right? So basically, if you're not doing the video portion of this, but it basically ski tourism as an industry in terms of total spend and passenger volume is really small compared to tours, activities, and attractions. And then I was just like, wait, here you got this successful business for this really small sector of travel. How come there's no conference and resource for tour and activity operators? And like that, it was like a light bulb moment, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of thing that can happen when you're around, creative, because the one thing is the people who invest in going to a conference are like, wait, think about it, right? I'm going to take 3-4 days out of my life away from my family, or maybe if it's in Orlando, I'll bring my family with me, but away from my family, away from my business, I'm going to spend whatever, $600 or $700, $800 on a ticket, depending upon the kind of company you are, plus travel. So it's a couple $1,000. So I'm going to spend that money and I'm going to take time away. That means there's a level of commitment already to your business and the future of your business that is only for certain people. But the people who do that, it's like, okay, I want to take my business to the next level, and those are the people who are there, and that's the kind of people you surround yourself with.
Another way to look at it, I treat it as a work vacation because there is some element of entertainment there. You got good friends, there's food, there's nightly events, there's hot tubs. It's a work vacation to me. So I don't
leisure.
Yeah. So, anyways, we're actually coming to the end of the show. Any final thoughts, Douglas?
I still haven't taken the plunge and gotten a tattoo, Kevin. Mm-hmm. I don't know. One of these days, one of these conferences, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll go together, man.
Kevin is always giving me shit because he thinks I'm too intellectual, I'm too uptight. I'm all about data. Never like to have any fun.
It's not true. I
won't get a tattoo. I won't swear on stage. I'm like,
you did though. You did last year. You got inspired by me, and you went out there and you dropped a F-bomb, and it was and you did it good. It wasn't like an intellectual nerdy way, I'm going to tell you that. Fucking God, he made me so mad. You know what I mean? You really leaned into it, man. It was really natural, and you did a good job at that. So Arival is going to be happening October, and the Watersports Forum in conjunction will be happening. The Watersports Forum is October 9th, right?
Yep, and then you stay for the next few days for Arival. So just count for the whole week to be there.
And you guys are going to have a space, right? And do some special water sports networking and content during Arival as well, right?
That's right. Yeah. So we have the Captain's Cove, which is kind of like our special
Who came up with these names? Was that also Kevin, or was that
Kevin?
Bruce?
I think Kevin came up with that.
Damn, Kevin, I got to get you involved in our marketing team. That's good stuff.
The code.
I'm really good at naming things. That is that's my specialty. I technically named these podcasts, and I didn't want it to be that, and then Greg just ran with it and loved it. Had a logo. So this is the last. And I'm sorry, I know we're gonna go over, but I don't give a shit. But I love the dynamic between partners. And if you've ever written Gino Wickman, he wrote a book, two books. One's called Rocket Fuel, another one's called Traction, and he talks about visionaries and implementers, right? And most of us all the time, we think we're both, but there's Greg is probably pretty close to both. but he is, to me, he is more of an implementer. Like, you give him something, he is like a runaway freight train and just gets it done, man. And like, you know, I typically am not that guy, obviously, but I always have a ton of ideas. I'm always like, oh, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? I was thinking about this and I came with that. But actually executing on them, I'm like, ugh, I'm terrible about it sometimes, you know, like spreadsheets and emails and fucking Google Calendar invites and all that shit, man. I'm just like, dude, I'll just send you a text and let me know if you're ready to do this. Like, let's, you know, have a couple beers, non-alcoholic for me, and like, let's just go. Let's get it done. Because he give me a hard thing, like, Kevin, you know, I'm kind of like an email guy. I'll text him anyway. I'm like, hey, Doug.
You have ADHD, Kevin?
I don't think so. I think ADHD is like a lot of bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, I think everybody's got a little bit of ADHD, but like ADHD and anxiety and depression and all that sort of stuff all presents in similar ways. So I think that's all a lot of shit made up by pharmaceutical companies wanting to give me a lot of pills that I'm not going to take. So. But probably, yeah.
All right. Well, if you guys want to check out tickets and info, go to watersportpodcast.com and then hit the 2023 conference link, and everything is there that you need. And by the time this show goes live, we'll have the schedule out for the forum. Douglas, is scheduled out for Arival already?
Yeah, well, for us, it's like an ongoing process, but yeah, the schedule's there. Okay. And we'll
so if you go to watersportpodcast.com, hit 2023 conference, and you'll go to the Arival website where you can see everything you need. So great. All right. Well, as always, guys, keep it awkward. And Douglas, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks so much, guys.